Okay, so number 5, communication. Get all the details. Try to be there. All right, so this is the next part, and Keith, we're gonna get to some of the fun stuff now. They love the home. You got to run comps. Ouch. What do you do today? Listing price means nothing. Listing price means nothing. You know what I mean? So on comps, where to be? And this is where, Keith, what are you seeing as far as appraisals? Like, let's say over your last month, more of them appraised than not, vice versa? What are you seeing?
I've actually seen most of them come in at least at purchase price. I've had a couple that didn't, but I'm surprised at how many have. And I think, it's interesting. I don't know how many agents on this meeting today were agents back in 2004, 5, and 6. In those days, appraisals were much different, right? We could call the appraiser. We knew who was doing it. There was a lot of bad behavior. Basically, there were loan officers who would threaten the appraisers. If you don't get value, I'll never use you again, kind of a thing. Honestly, I never did that. My comment to an appraiser, and it's really kind of my value system, was always just this. Give me a number you can defend. As long as you can defend that number, I'm okay with that. It is what it is, okay? And it's kind of what you really need to have in the market. It's easy to look at the appraisers and get down on them while they're not doing their job. And there are some who don't necessarily do a really good job. But in my experience, most of them are trying to do the right thing and really come up with a value they feel is fair and they can justify.
Yeah.
This market, you're starting to see a little bit of time adjustments now. That happened a lot back in 05, 04, 5, and 6. We're starting to see them again. A comp was 4 or 5 months ago. They're going to add a time adjustment to it because values are going up so much. But I will tell you this, they don't have to. It really comes down to the property and what are things relative to the comps he has. One thing I want to talk about on appraisals. Now, this doesn't apply to someone buying if you're a buying agent, but if you're a selling agent, my personal opinion, the listing agent should always meet the appraiser at the property. You should have comps for that appraisal. Ones that you think are fair, good comps. Don't give them a bunch of BS. Make sure you feel they're good comps. Most likely he has them, but you never know. And if you approach the appraiser from the standpoint, hey, I'm just here to help. You're not pushy or anything. Try to strike up. Kind of goes back to what Josh was saying before about establishing a relationship or some kind of rapport with a listing agent when you're the buyer's agent. It's no different with an appraiser. And if you know the area, and don't ever, by the way, ask the appraiser if they're from around there. That is probably the worst thing you can do. I've seen it happen. And funny, the appraisals that have come in low in my career, you wouldn't believe how many times the realtor asked them if they were from that area. And I think it really insults an appraiser. They don't like it. And I'm not saying they got a low number because of that, but it certainly cannot help. So treat them with respect, but just let them kind of information. If you know anything special about the house, make sure you share it with them.
All the details.
So that's pretty much, I think, about appraisals.
Yep. And the appraisals have a separate spot when we actually touch on the offer itself, all the nooks and crannies to make your offer amazing. But when it comes to the comps, the big thing I want to stress is I think you should forecast based on kind of what you're seeing, right? Selection, demand is demand. Most cases you're seeing that there's probably no other actives. There's probably 2 or 3 pending and then like 10 closed, and you just have to forecast the best you can, knowing a few things. Number 1, use everything you've accumulated from that other agent. If he's told you about offers, anything and everything, find out what's the seller's motivation, right? Do you ask like, hey, what do the sellers need? Do they want a fast closing? Do they want a long closing? What would they prefer? And that helps. That actually got me my last offer accepted, actually.
Do they want a lease back?
Believe it or not,
their home, they're going to be closing another home, but they want to close this one a little bit early. Things like that.
Exactly. You could cater your offer to the sellers, give them exactly what they're looking for, given it's within reason. So use all you know there. If it's 4%, 5%, and there's nothing active, then that might be the best course of action based on what you've seen. But here's the catch. A lot of people are throwing out just insane offers thinking that, oh, we'll be saved by the appraisal. Sellers know better. Okay, just because you write $100,000 over asking price, you better back it up because they know better. So you really need to find that within reason. And here's what I truly say after basing all the facts on the comps. Sellers, or buyers, in this market, I wish I could give you the golden offer that's going to get it accepted. All I can tell you is this much. They have here, you need to put your best foot forward. There's no guarantee you're going to get a counter, but here's the catch. You want to offer as much as possible where you're not going to be like, we pay too much, really. Okay, but you don't want to offer any less if you don't get accepted, because you don't want to be like, oh crap, man, we could have gone up 5 more thousand, 10 more thousand. All I can say is in this market, you need to put your best foot forward, and it requires a little bit of talking and going back and forth, usually trying to really figure out where that comfort level is, because chances are it is going to be over asking price. It's just a matter of what's good for everybody that you think is in everybody's best interest. Hope that makes sense. Yeah, Keith.
I want to touch on that comment, if I may, about trying to figure out, where the value is going to come in based off that appraisal. I've had listing agents call me and say, yeah, I don't think this is going to appraise. And does your borrower have more funds to pay if it doesn't? Comfortable conversation for me. If I haven't already talked to my borrower and said, hey, are you okay having that conversation with the listing agent, right? Because I'm not in a position to divulge information like that unless I've got permission from my client. Now, there may be other loan officers who might. Again, I don't do business that way. I'm very ethical. I protect my client's information without, it's that fine line between giving enough information to an agent to make them feel comfortable without giving them specific stuff that you're kind of giving them private information out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that might be one where, I'd rather not have this conversation until I talk to my client, see how they feel. It's not for me to make that decision. If they have a whole bunch of money, doesn't mean they're willing to bring it to the table either, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Me saying something doesn't necessarily mean anything anyway, if I haven't had that conversation.
Do you find that there's any value in getting
I'm sorry?
Do you find that there's any value for getting a pre-qual or pre-approval for that specific property every single time? Is that beneficial? Like, let's say you're going to do an escalation clause up to 350. Do you just give them a pre-qual for 350 and then you're good to go from there?
This is a great question, because let's talk a little bit about and guys, look, I'm not an agent, but I know how this game is played, and it kind of bugs me a little. And maybe I'm just different, and because I haven't been an agent, I'm a little bit freer with this thought. But humor me here for a second. And I wish we could see people's pictures so I could see a show of hands, but how many here want the pre-approval for the purchase price you're going to offer, and not a penny more? Can we speak up at least? Say yay or nay.
Say that again?
How many agents ask for a pre-qual that's based on the offer price? That's what they want the pre-qual based on. Because that's the most of the ones I do is based on, hey Keith, we're getting ready to put an offer in. It's $450,000. I need a pre-qual. Well, of course, I know what I was going to put down, so I do a pre-qual for that amount. But what if the borrower can qualify for a lot more? Well, the argument has been from agents, well, if they know they can qualify for more, they may not accept our offer. They'll counter back with a higher number. And everybody knows we play that game, right? Maybe the number on the pre-qual really is the most they can qualify for. That actually happens. I do something right on the edge that I certainly wouldn't want to have as my loan, but I don't get to make that decision for my borrowers. But in my mind, if someone's qualified, put an offer on a $450,000 home, but they put a pre-qual based on a $500,000 purchase. In this market, Don't you think that's a strength? Knowing that the borrower, for a fact, isn't on a razor's edge. You don't know otherwise, right? You don't know if that's really the right number or not.
Yeah.
It's a thought, something to consider. Me personally, I'm like, hey, if you don't want to offer more than 475, who cares, right? So it's forced, So my point is, by showing the strength of the borrower, I think you have a better chance of getting your contract accepted. You may think, well, Keith, that'll help drive up that number. Well, I think the borrower has to have a number that they're willing to go to and say, that's it. I only give you this thing to show. I'm going to easily qualify for this amount. Does that make sense?
I think it does.
I'm not an agent, but that's what I would do if I was.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
I've heard a few times, maybe I wouldn't. I don't know.
Back and forth.
Anyway, my thoughts.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think that's awesome.
Something like
It's a new perspective. I haven't thought about it that way. So
I do something like that when I have that conversation.
because I know with cash offers, I only want them to send me as much money as they need to in an account.
Of course.
Specifically, but when it comes to the pre-qual, because we're going to get to the actual offer next. So after you run the comps, you determine that magic number that your clients are willing to either go up to or specifically offer and hold to, whatever it might be. And now you're actually writing the offer.
Collect enough, collect enough, collect enough.